You see this F2L case? It's a pretty simple case, isn't it? It's just an edge insert. But believe it or not, I'm pretty confident that you have been solving this case incorrectly. Like I said, this is just an edge insert F2L case, so it might seem like there's not a lot of room to mess it up. You just insert the edge with the alg you use for beginners method, or use one of the other popular insert algs, right? Wrong. Let's go over this in more depth. The edge insert algorithm that you learn in the beginners method is 7 moves long, and it either requires a cube rotation or F moves. And the most popular algs other than that are either 7 or 8 moves long. But with this little known trick, we can cut those 7 or 8 moves down to 5, as long as we have at least one other empty F2L slot. In fact, there are 2 ways that we can do it: keyhole and block building. Okay, let's start by going over block building. So, let's say that we have our inserted corner right here, the edge right here, and this slot behind it is free. We can use this as a way to do some block building, like this, by taking out this block, moving it over, then moving this edge to right here, so that when we move this back, we've formed this block, and now we can insert the pair. So in total, that is 5 moves: R2, U prime, R prime, U, R2, to solve the same pair that you would solve in 7 or 8 moves with the other inserts. You can also do the same thing starting from this position for the edge. It would just go R2, U prime, R, U, R2. Or you can start right here and do R2, U2, R, U2, R2, and that will solve the edge as well. In fact, the only place it can't be to start is there, because then doing the moves to move the edge would mess up the corner as well. Of course, the same thing applies on the left. Here it would be L2, U, L, U prime, L2, and that creates the block. And the same thing, of course, applies into the back slot. It would go R2, U, R, U prime, R2. And if you're going into the back left, it would go L2, U prime, L prime, U, L2. The one downfall of block building is it does require the edge to be oriented. If you're in this sort of position, block building won't work in that same way. And it also requires that specific slot to be open, as opposed to any of the other slots. And that's where the second technique comes in, keyhole. For keyhole, any of the slots can be open, and using a technique we'll get to in just a minute, even if the edge isn't oriented, we can solve it in 5 moves without cube rotating. So, let's use this example. Here, we couldn't do block building because this slot is full, but this slot is empty. So what we would do is use a D move to move the corner spot from that slot to where we're solving the pair. So now this is basically an empty slot that we can use to insert the edge and then line up the D layer again. And once again, that is 5 moves to solve this F2L pair. The 5 moves are D, R, U prime, R prime, D prime. And just as an example, even if the slot that was empty was in the back like this or something, the same concept applies. You do whatever moves you need to do to get this corner spot to right here. In this case, it would be a D2, insert the edge, then line it up again. All right, so let's go over what you can do in this kind of case where the edge isn't oriented, meaning that if you try to do what you'd normally do, if you try to do that, you get a flipped edge. So instead of cube rotating and doing keyhole, you can move the slot instead of moving the corner spot, and that will in effect orient the edge. You'll see what I mean. Instead of moving this spot to right here, we're going to move the spot where the edge needs to go to the empty slot using either a wide U move or an E slice move. In this case, I'll just use a wide U move. Insert the edge to right here, and this edge is now oriented. And then you can move it back with a wide U move or a D move, and you can use things like that to influence the orientation of your edges for future pairs, but that's more complex than I'm going to get into in this video. Alright, so let's go over some examples for other slots. Just like before, it makes it really easy for the back. You just have to once again move the empty slot over to where this is, So I do a D-move, insert my edge into the back here, then line everything up again with a D prime. Just one more example. Let's say we have this edge which needs to go back here. We have this empty slot, so we can move this empty spot to right here with a D2, insert our edge, and then do a D2 back to line everything up again. Once again, 5 moves to solve that F2L pair. But like I said earlier, those techniques only work if you have another empty F2L slot. But even if you don't, we can usually do something better than just inserting the edge. We can do some stuff to influence our EO going into last layer as well. For a lot of cases, we can easily force a cross OLL, and it's also easy to make sure that you never get a dot OLL out of that F2L case. So the first example I'd like to go over is where this edge is oriented for the insert, and so is every other edge. This one is very easy to force a cross OLL. The first way of doing it is just by doing an RU2gen insert. My favorite one is RU prime R prime to take out the corner, and then you have this F2L case. But there are some other ones you could use as well. Some people like this alg, and some people like the inverse of that previous alg, which goes like this. The other cases where you can force a cross OLL look something like this. You will have 2 misoriented edges, one in your slot and one in the top layer, and you can tell which case you have depending on where this misoriented edge is relative to the edge you're trying to insert. So here, it's just one move clockwise of the edge we're trying to insert. So for this one, you just do the regular alg, like this, to insert it, and you will solve your EO. Okay, for our second case, it will be directly across from the edge we're trying to insert. And for this one, it's another very simple one. You just put the edge we're going to insert into the back right here, and you do a sledgehammer, and then you have a free pair. And finally, we have the case where our misoriented edges are once again in the slot and one step counterclockwise of the edge. Once again, for this one, we put this edge into the back, and then what we do is we take out like this, setting up to this insert instead of the connected pair insert. Then we insert our pair and we orient all of our edges.
Hey guys, it's Editor Brody, and I'm locked in the dungeon again editing this edge insert video, but I realized that Brody forgot something in his explanation and I needed to fix it. So, let's say that you have this edge insert and you have like your own favorite alg for it. Let's say your favorite alg is putting it right here and doing a sledgehammer and then RUR prime. Well, doing that will have one EO case where that does give you a dot OLL. In this case, it is this one, where you have an oriented edge here and here. If you do that alg, it will give you a dot OLL. For whatever alg is your favorite, you need to figure out which case gives you a dot OLL, and then use a different alg in that case only. So here, I can avoid the dot OLL by doing that, and then doing the sledgehammer alg in every other case.
The only case where we need to really worry about a dot OLL now is this one where we have no other misoriented edges. And for this, it's pretty simple. As long as you don't do one of the inserts I showed for the all edges oriented case, you won't get a dot OLL. So here you can just do the regular insert once again, and you will avoid the dot OLL every time. So if you were solving this case incorrectly before, now you know the right way. If you enjoy solving with lower move counts, fewer cube rotations, and faster times, please subscribe to my channel. We're currently at 58,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate your help on the road to 100K. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. This is Brody, signing out.